Hi guys, Kelly here from Body Fit Solutions. We're going to be doing a beginner intermediate level Pilates class. This will involve a foam roller if you have it, but you don't absolutely need it. I've got an overball. Again, if you have it at home, it's quite a good tool, but you actually can do this whole workout with just you and the mat. So I think these days actually we are getting very stressed with what's going on in the world, and I know myself, I'm feeling my hips are really feeling the tightness of what's going on and the stress of the world. So I'm wanting to kind of focus a bit on releasing through our hips, releasing through the back of the legs, and just making sure that we're nice and loose and lengthened for our days ahead. So we're going to start with the foam roller. And if you don't have a foam roller, I do recommend getting it, or a medicine ball or a hard surface ball like a football, so that we can start to release, and I've done some videos on this, release the tension in the front of the hip. So I'm just going to come down from the hip, go into the front of the thigh, and angle myself a little bit over to the side edge of my thigh, where I tend to find more tension. Once I find that, I just want to melt the leg. I've got my right arm a little bit more on the floor, just for some support. If you find this too challenging, either your shoulders are not that great, what you can do is prop yourself up on some pillows and just lay your thigh on this roller. And then we're going to slowly roll it down, wait for that tissue to melt. Okay, so it'll feel a little bit bruisey at first, and then as you release, it'll start feeling a little bit easier. And just breathe, let your breath really flow. So nice big inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and just slowly rolling down that roller. So I'm just breathing, and I'm just slowly rolling that down. Now if it's very, very painful, if you've not done this before, then you want to spend a little bit more time on working my way down, as I do this quite regularly, and working down to the knee. But you want to spend about 2 minutes on each side. I'm just going to do a little bit today so we can just wake up that area. And those of you that are just regularly doing that rolling will not find that they need to do so much. But I'm just kind of looking for those really, really tight areas. And if you don't have a roller and you've got something like a hard football at home, that works really, really well. We also advise that you get a lacrosse ball or a small hard ball, so that you can work into the hips, work into the calves, work into the back of the legs. And I want to really work on hip mobility today, so just loosening off the tightness in our hips. Oh, I found a nice hot spot there. It's really not feeling so great. And just slowly rolling that down to the knee. Obviously I'm propping myself up, but if that is not comfortable for you on your wrists, then just stay lower. As I said, put the kind of some pillows propped up so that you can just really drop into that roller and make the most of it. So it should be kind of a 7 or 8 out of 10 in discomfort. I don't want to say pain, but for some of you it might feel relatively painful. So just set that aside. We're going to come into, I'm just going to move that forward just a little bit so you can see me better. So we're just going to come into a little hip stretch, so that we can just dynamically open up the hip. Now if you are in your living room, or you've got somewhere to put your foot up on the couch, this works really, really well. It's going to be a little bit bigger of a stretch, but really target the front of the thigh. So if you prop your foot up on the couch, you might want to just put your hand down there, prop your foot up, and then tilt the pelvis up. And then if you want to, and that feels good, reach the arms up to the sky. If it feels a little bit too stressed to do that, just have your arms here, or just have your arms here. Now I'm tilting the pelvis up, so the pubic bone to the navel, but I'm also dragging the heel back at the same time, and then release. And then tilt, tuck the pelvis up, drag the heel, and then release. Good, one more time. So tilt the pelvis up. Remember that foot on the couch is going to really intensify the stretch. If you are finding that you're sitting quite a lot nowadays, that we're kind of stuck indoors, then we want to make sure that we're stretching that hip really, really well. Okay? So take it to the other side, tuck that foot up onto your couch, onto a chair, onto your bed, whatever works for you. This is quite good to do after we've done the releasing. So I really recommend not to just stretch and make sure this is a dynamic stretch so we're not kind of hanging into it, but it really feels like a tilt up and a pull back at the same time. And you might find with the arms up that really helps to open up the stretch a little bit more. And then release. And up. And release. Good, one more. And up. And release. Lovely, good. So we're nice and open through both hips. And I'd just like you to come onto all fours and just have a nice little wriggle out. And this is what you might find your cat doing in the morning, just to kind of suss out where there's some tightness. And I can feel some tightness around my hips, around the back of my legs, a little bit into my shoulders, into my sides. So I'm just having a little wriggle just to feel what feels good. And then I just want to settle with the toes tucked under, the hands underneath the armpits, and just go into a little cat stretch with the lower half. So I want to open up the low back, open up the back of the neck, and then I want to slowly bring the pelvis back, but without dropping the belly. So I want to just hug the belly up a little bit, hug the ribs up, and then I want to really lengthen out. I want to be very careful not to go into these hyper curves of the low back and the neck, but actually try and elongate the upper back. So when I do the cat stretch, I'm thinking more low back and a little bit of my neck. I'm kind of skipping this, which we tend to do, which is pushing up into the upper back. And then as I come back, I even try and put my hand there, if you can balance on one side, and just really feel that if a hand was there, would it be dropping into the hand, okay? So slowly coming to where your sitting bones are pointing behind you, and the pelvis and the ribs are nice and level, and then lengthen back out. So let's do that one more time. Tilt the pelvis 12, open up the back of the neck, tilt the tail back up without losing the deep belly, ribs connected, and lengthened upper back. So we should be ready to just press down into one arm, let the other arm come up. I'm going to keep it nice and straight. Okay, press into the other arm. If that's a little bit too much through your wrists, try and take some of the pressure back into your feet and your legs a little bit. Good. Keep the head down. I was looking at the camera. So I'm pressing down into my left arm, keeping my right arm straight, pressing into there. And just do one more on each side. So just waking up the obliques, our muscles of our core. And then release. Lovely. So I'd like you to come down on your back. If you need a little headlock to rest your head on, please do, or a little rolled up towel. And I'm just going to take my shirt off just so you can see what's happening a little bit more. So I want you to just settle in, one hand at your chest, one hand at your belly, and I want you to feel the rise and fall. Okay, so I've just got my hand here, and I just want you to feel the breath expanding the hands and then deflating. So the chest and the belly go in. Inflate and deflate. Good. So expanding the ribs, expanding the belly. So you're doing this on your back, or if you feel more comfortable sitting, sit up in a chair, or sit like this if this is comfortable for you. So I don't want the arms to be out of sync. If you find that you're not breathing into your belly as much, maybe focus both your hands there. Okay? If you're not allowing that chest to fall, maybe you're feeling slightly anxious, bring your hands there. And let that fall. So just do one more time. Or if you need more time to regulate the breath, by all means stay there a little bit longer. And then bringing your hands to your pelvis, I just want you to start to roll very gently. So rolling like your pelvis is a shell on the beach. And we're going to inhale that shell down and then exhale to roll it back up as if it's just rolling on the sand and coming up the mat. Exhale as you roll it down the mat, sorry, inhale. So I'm letting the breath fill the belly, but not overly pushing from my back. So I don't want to thrust the pelvis down by lifting my back up. I want to really feel that the roll is happening in the pelvic halves. So inhale as you roll down, and exhale as you roll back up. And just find that nice middle, that heavy point for the pelvis to rest, and it feels like it's spread out. We're going to place our hands by our side and just feel a little press, and notice your shoulders. Are they rounded forward? Are they pinched back with your ribs up? Can they nestle in? So actually they just feel flat on the mat, okay? Now we're going to press into the left foot and melt into the pelvis, so the pelvis stays still, and see if I can float my right leg up really lightly. Nothing too crazy, okay? Exhale, press into the right foot without disrupting the pelvis. That's very different on that side. Okay, I can feel as soon as my leg starts to pick up, it wants to fall over to one side. So I want you to really pay attention to that. And don't let the leg lift if you feel your pelvis move. See if you can really center your pelvis. Really keep it in the middle. If you feel like it falls over to the right, guide it to the left. If you feel like it tips down, tip it a little bit up. Imagine there's a little marble resting in the middle. You're trying to keep it really steady. Okay, my legs should feel quite light, the floating legs, but I'm really melting into the leg that's coming into the ground. Okay, so I'm really centering this leg. Okay, let's just do one more on each side. Really folding into the hips. I don't want to create tension in my hips. So right here, free, where your hand and your, if you can get into where your leg and your pelvis meet, it should feel quite soft. So let's just do one more. And really work on that. I'm trying to slow down so that the pelvis stays calm. Let's do a little hip release. Okay, so we're going to start on the right. And I want you to just roll the leg out to the side. But I want you to put your hands underneath your pelvis actually for this. So your fingertips just underneath the back of your pelvis, not under your low back where there's a natural space, but down a little bit lower. So I want you to drop that leg out to the side, but not drop your pelvis over. Okay, so the opposite side hand, so if my right leg is folding, my left hand is feeling, the left pelvis is feeling my hand. And I'm just going to slide it down the mat and then rotate it inwards. Okay, so I'm rotating the leg outwardly, sliding the foot down. I'm imagining there's a big paintbrush on my knee. Okay, so I'm drawing a circle with the paintbrush on my knee around the ceiling. Okay, and I'm just really paying attention. If I just let that leg flop, my pelvis rolls all over the place. But if I can keep the pelvis really still, my leg now actually really turns in a very different way in the hips. Let's go the other way. So inhale, internally rotating, and then come around the outside. So my leg is going inward rotated and outward rotated. Okay, and I'm thinking of the ball in the socket. Okay, so I'm stirring that leg in the hip, but without stirring the pelvis. This is really important. Okay, let's do it on the other side. So we've got those hands behind. I want to slowly drop this first one out to the side. And notice when the right side of the pelvis starts to lift up. So that's my tipping point. And then I'm going to circle the leg from there. So I'm only going to go as far as the hands are level. And then stir it around and inward. So outward rotation, slide it down, inward rotation. Also notice when the leg goes down that your tail doesn't start dropping down, okay? So the pressure should be exactly the same. Let's reverse. So I'm keeping the pressure on my hands. I'm letting my brain really focus on that pressure, not changing it. I'm not letting my brain really focus on the leg movement other than knowing where it needs to go, but I want my brain to focus on my hands. So let's just do one more time. And then release. Lovely. Now I want you to bring your feet a little bit closer to your bum. Take your blocks away so your head is flat, but if you find that your head is really tipping back here, you might want a little bit of support for your head. So we're going to have the feet a little bit wider than the sitting bones, and we're going to do that same rotation. So we're going to rotate the legs outwardly as we come up into a little bridge. Melt the feet down, okay? I want to make sure here that the ribs aren't lifting and my low back is lifting. So I want to connect the ribs to the pelvis. Yes, and press through the legs. Now I'm going to go inwardly rotating with my leg bones as the bum comes down. So spiraling outwards in the legs as you come up, spiraling inwards as we come down. Exhale and rotate. and inward rotation. Lovely. Outward rotation and inward rotation. Let's reverse. So we go inwards with the legs. It feels like the inner thighs are really working hard. And then almost there's a little release for me. So for some of you, this might feel easier. Going inward with the knees. The inner thighs are working. Don't force it if it feels like you're working through your knees, okay? So it shouldn't feel too much in the knees. If you are, just ease back on the rotations. Yeah, but we should feel the bump. And rotate one more time. Inward. And just really stay connected to those deep abdominal muscles. I'm not bracing, it's just a light connection. Woo! And then release. And just do a little rock, side to side. Awesome. Okay, we're going to come onto our side. And I want you to use the roller if you've got one of these over balls. Really, really nice to use. So if we've got a roller or a little ball, we're just going to start to do a little rotation. So I'm going to use the ball so you can see a little bit more, but please feel free to use the roller. Now my arm position under here can be flat down if that feels good for your shoulder, or you can prop it up or put some head blocks so that you feel really comfortable there, okay? So my hand is on the ball, my legs are together, knees bent, and I'm just going to roll. And if you don't have a rolling surface, you could slide along the carpet and just allow the shoulder to glide. I'm trying to really move my trunk with my arms. So my arm, my shoulder, my trunk, my waist, and then my waist, my ribs, my shoulders, my arm. Okay, so arm, shoulders, ribs, waist, pelvis, waist, ribs, shoulders. And then I'm going to stay stacked where the shoulders are on top of each other, and I'm going to give a little press into the ball. If you don't have a ball, take your hand onto the floor. And I just want you to press into the bottom leg to float the top leg up. And then release it down. And press into the bottom leg, lift the top leg up. I want to feel really stable through my deep abdominals. So as I'm pressing, shoulder blades connecting, deep abdominals on. And then the next one. And I'm going to start to send the leg back. Now my bottom leg is going slightly more forward. Inhale as you come back in forward. And exhale. I'm also going to reach the ball or my arm. If you have no ball, just reach the arm 3 in space as my leg goes back. And then come back in, bend the elbow, bend the knee. Okay, now I'm only going back as far as it doesn't go into my low back. So I don't want to send the tail backwards. I actually want to send the pubic bone upwards. Reaching that ball. So I'm starting to feel my bum. Now I'm going to add a little stretch of the leg out. Not too much behind, reach the arm forward. Inhale, come back in. Exhale, reach the leg, reach the arm. Inhale, back in. Let's go 2 more. So I'm starting to feel that bum on that side. And reach and hold. Here we go, we're going to do some circles. So down, behind, up and forward. Down, behind, up and forward. If you want to stabilize without the ball. And 4. And 5, let's not have any rotation in the body. And then backwards and forward and up. And around. So the other direction. No movement in the pelvis. So I'm not making big, huge circles. 2 and 1. And we should feel a nice little warmth in our bums. Let's do this the other way. So we're going to do a little bit of rotation with the ball. Gliding it forward. And gliding it back. Gliding it forward and rotating back. And roll, rotate, and back. Lovely. One more time. Good. And then find an arm position that feels really good. Just make sure you're not stressed through your shoulders. Let's press through the ball, press through the bottom leg, float the top leg up. And release. Press through the bottom leg and float it up. And press. This time we start to add the arc back. Notice how I move my other leg forward a little bit for counterbalance. Inhale in. Exhale back. A little bit of 12 in the pelvis and the tail to the pubic bone to the navel. And notice how I take more time going back. I don't want to just rush it and fling that leg back. I also like to feel the elastic, so I'm creating my own tension. Let's add the straight leg. Reaching the ball, reach the legs just a little bit behind. I'm kind of pushing it down the mat and a little bit behind me. But I want to make sure at the same time I'm deepening the abdominals, so retracting the wall of the tummy. And in, making sure those ribs don't fall forward. Okay, let's circle. Down and behind, forward and down and behind, forward. 5 of those. Doesn't matter which way you go. Okay, so whichever way you go, we'll go the other way after. 2. And 1, and reverse. Other way around. Woo! Feeling my bum. 2. 3. Make sure we're nice and stable. Use the hand on the floor if you need to, if you're wobbling all over the place. 2. And 1. And then release. Good. Give it a little release. Now I do suggest at this point in time, if you do have a little hard ball, to just take a little time to get the little lacrosse ball just behind the bum, into the glute tissue. It can be quite a tender area, and so I just advise my clients to put it under the bum, let the leg just drop a little bit, just find any tender spots, and also to work behind the legs into the hamstrings. So sitting on a box and putting the ball underneath. We've got lots of videos on our channel that you can see the advice on how to release those areas. So I definitely recommend, after we've done a lot of bum work, to just take practice on that. So we're going to use the overball or the roller, or you can just use the mat. So I'll just show you what we're going to do with these surfaces. If you tend to be quite stiff in your upper back, I would recommend a soft surface. If you're quite flexible in your back, then the roller might be really good because it'll give you a sense of kind of a restriction a little bit because it's a little bit harder. And if you don't have either of those, I'll show you the options on the floor. So we're just going to do a little modified chest lift, just a mobility for the upper back. I want you to interlace the fingers, take your hands behind the head. Take a little breath in. I like to tilt the pelvis here when I'm over the ball, but on the mat it would just be neutral. Okay, we're going to breathe in. And then I want you to slowly let the upper back start to melt over the ball. Now I'm only going as far as the ribs don't start lifting. So I could go into a full extension of my back, but I'm really just wanting the upper back to move. The neck is long. Then as I come up, I want the neck to stay long and to roll the ball a little bit behind you as you come up. I'm just trying to make this really easy. I could force it forward, but I'm going to start to strain my neck or work a little bit too abdominally. So I'm really just wanting to curl the spine gently up, and I'm wanting to allow some movement in that upper back to go behind. Now if you don't have that ball, continue going with it if you do, or if you have the roller, same thing. So if I'm on the floor, I'm just going to take a nice breath in here and just feel the mat and lengthen myself along the mat, and then coming up in the same way. Now for me, I don't move very well, as you can see here. So my upper back doesn't move very freely, so when I'm coming off the floor, my neck is very tempted to thrust forward. So I have to really keep my head back and long so that it really is my upper back, and then I lengthen along the mat. Let's do 2 more wherever you are. Breathing out, lengthening from the back of the pelvis all the way to the head. So that's about as far. You can maybe scoop your elbows around, that might help you to go a little bit further. But if that's forcing your head forward, then don't do that option. Okay, I'm going to go back to the ball because this serves me better, but feel free to stay wherever you feel best. Okay, we're going to go up. Now I want you to lift one leg. This is going to challenge you a little bit. And I just want you to reach your opposite arm across to the inner shin. If you're on the mat, it's the same thing. And you don't actually have to lift your head up on the mat. The variation on the mat is really, really nice with your head down and just reaching across. Let's just do 2 more and I'll show you the mat version, just so you're clear on the other side. So one more time, roller or ball, same thing, pressing in. I can really feel my obliques. So the mat version on the other side, I lift the leg up and then I'm going to reach across. Now I could lift my head, but this doesn't feel as nice for me on the floor. So I'm just going to press across, let my shin come into my hand into the shin. Watch, we're not doing this. And then come back. And I'm just going to press across. Now that action of reaching across the body is enough to bring some connection into my obliques. Okay, so this still works really, really nicely. And release. Lovely. Let's just come to a little tabletop position. And we're gonna have the hands here by the side. And I'd like you to do a little bent leg femur arc. Okay, so keeping the legs really deep in the hip and making sure that the belly doesn't pop out and get tense. Okay, and then I want you to reach the same arm as leg. So my left leg is going down, my left arm is reaching up to the sky, and I'm pressing the other elbow down. Okay, so now you can see it a little bit more with my right. Pressing into the floor, reaching the other arm up. And release. Pressing and reaching. And if you want to keep your head still, that probably will feel better. If you want to lengthen the leg, a little bit more challenge. But I don't want the leg to start feeling heavy. So I don't want you to reach so far that it feels like you're hanging on your hip. If that's the case, go here. I actually, for me, feel more abdominals there. Feel free to do a few more. Lovely. So let's come on to our front. We're just going to do a little primal movement, which is really, really nice for the pelvis. So we're going to put the hands under the head and just come into a little crawl pattern. So bending the knee, and I'm just coming to where my toe can press into the mat and slightly almost push the mat forward. And then come back. Rotate and press a little bit. So I'm turning the pelvis. Try not to lift the head like I am. We're going to just keep the head down. Just mobilizing. And just noticing if it feels easier to go one way. So I'm slightly getting that big toe to be able to push me forward. Now, I want you to look over that shoulder. So allowing your body to lift and look up. And lift and look up. Looking over that shoulder. And nothing crazy, just kind of feel what feels natural for you. This would be the natural progression of a baby coming up and into crawling. And then after we've done that, that's kind of loosened off the low back a little bit, we can come into a little swan position. So hands here, or if you feel better here, I want you to take your knees and press them into the floor, lifting your pelvis up and tucking the pelvis to 12. And then seeing if we can just hover and lengthen the upper back out. Now if that's too much, try the hands here. So I'm going to press into the knees, lift the hips up, tilt the pelvis to 12, and then lift the upper body a little bit out. So I'm feeling a lot in my arms reaching there. And then release. Press into the knees, toes are tucked under, hips lift up, the tail will want to go here. I want to tilt the pelvis downwards so the tail goes away from my head. Lots of deep belly, really lengthening out, really, really hard. And then release. Take the hands back to here. And then let's come up with the belly all the way. If we can, to a full swan. If that doesn't feel nice, just go into a half swan. That's totally great. But I want to feel that connection I had to the belly now takes me up into that full swan. And then come back down. Okay? You want to just work the pre-swan. Really, really lovely for those of us that are very tight through the back. We want the shoulders to retract gently and coming up all the way. Lovely. And just come into a little shell. We're just going to finish with a little rotation pattern. If you've got a flex band at home, bring the flex band around your back, really lovely, hold it on either end. And we're just going to do a little reach and row. So one arm going back, one arm going forward. And really trying not to twist the pelvis. And notice as I go here, I'm not pulling the elbow really far back here, just to my waist. One more on each side. You might feel a stretch in those hips and then change over. So lovely lift through the body. You can anchor the back foot. And so I want a retraction and protraction of the shoulders. So this works really nice with the flex band around the back of the shoulders, so you can really feel the resistance, feel that the movement is coming from your back, tilting that tummy up, and one more, and release. Lovely. Either in kneeling or standing up, just taking a nice breath in and reaching into a little mermaid. So you can do this in standing, if it's not happy for your shoulder, just to do this, but I don't want you to compress over to the other side. Inhale, lift, and the head if appropriate, and think more about lifting the rib cage up and up. Just make sure in kneeling, if you are tight in the hips, you might end up being in this position, in which case you're better standing. And let's just finish with 2 more. Press the ground away and over, and release. Thank you very much for joining this beginner intermediate class. Hopefully you feel a little bit looser in your hips and can get on with your day or week really well. Thanks very much.